So hello there, my name is Crystal Pahulka. I'm the teacher who was asked to help complete this section on leading indicator 1.4. The indicator was that teacher teams and collaborative groups regularly interact to address common issues regarding curriculum, assessment, instruction, and the achievement of all students. So this was an area that was identified as an area of growth for our schools. Because of the fact that both parents and staff gave us very high ratings on this. Parents and administration gave us higher ratings on this, but staff disagreed. Most of the staff either indicated that this was an area where they were unsure about whether or not this was happening, or other staff indicated that they completely disagreed that this was not happening. So as a result, we developed a plan moving forward to help clarify what PLCs were and when we would be doing them. So we made a clear plan to have PLCs weekly, and we introduced the concept of PLCs and what they were. We provided a detailed explanation of the purpose and intent behind transforming the staff meetings into a PLC. And really tried to get staff on board with the collaboration that we would now be able to accomplish. We encouraged team members to establish written goals throughout the year for their students, and to kind of go more in depth when it came to looking at planning, collaborating as a team to think about what it is that students need, what it is that we're trying to teach them, how we address learning gaps, how we deal with students who are performing above their grade level. What do we do in those situations, and how do we use our collaborative teams to help us address those problems? We also developed spreadsheets for our data, which I will show you in just a moment. So the very first thing we did, again, was to introduce our PLCs, clarify what that was, and then go over our norms and expectations. So we met as a team and developed a list of PLC norms and expectations. We clarified what each one meant and then voted to adopt these norms and expectations that you see on the screen. We also clarified our school-wide vision and goals and voted on that as a school staff. We also talked about the idea of pre-work for our PLCs. So now that we know what a PLC is and what it involves, what are we going to need to do to get ready for each of those PLCs? So we created templates where teachers will be able to show what they are working on in terms of like unit planning, thinking about what it is that they really want students to learn, and what are some of the problems that might come up, filling that in ahead of time, and then being prepared to meet with their PLC teams and collaborate on those ideas. We developed an agenda for our PLC meetings, which involved going over the norms and then really sticking to these four primary questions, which are: what do we want students to learn? How will we know if they have learned it? How do we respond if they have not learned it? And how do we respond if they already know it? We also talked about what it means to collect student data, and we created a form where we can, or a template, I should say, where we can collect this data in a way that is accessible to the entire team rather than just individual teachers. We have decided as a staff that we are going to begin this process with math, since it is the simplest one to begin collecting data for. And so we created this spreadsheet where we will have our standards in the top. On the bottom, it'll tell us what percentage of students got each of these questions right. what the total score, final score for each student was, and then again breaks it down by how many students achieved various percentages. So this would be something that we would do as PLC pre-work, and then when we come to our data teams, then that is something that the data team can look over and kind of analyze where students are and what we need to do to help them, whether that's a student who is doing very well or a student who needs extra help. As mentioned, we decided to do this in the area of math moving forward, but we had already started looking at our map data, and so we decided to continue that. So each of the grade bands now has a spreadsheet where they know what the goals are for their students in that testing window. So at the moment we just finished winter, so that's the spreadsheet that we created and the data that we're looking at. The top section here shows us the percentile ranges of the scores that the students fall in, and then we've indicated in red, yellow, green, and blue where a student is, if they're doing really well and excelling, or if they're needing to grow in particular areas. We have also created this section on the bottom where we can see what their score was for each of the sections of the test, and then identify whether that is an area of growth or an area that the student is excelling in. Once we input their scores, we also asked our teams to begin writing in individual students' areas of strength and their areas of growth to come up with an academic goal for the spring, which would be our next testing area, and then to come up with a plan as to how we would achieve that goal for each of our subject areas. As you can see, this is still a work in progress, but it is something that we are really excited about to begin to collect this data in a form that is accessible to all of us, to meet as a PLC and look over our units, our plans, to meet as data teams and discuss how our students are doing and just collaborate on ideas of how to help our students. So this is our plan going forward, and we're really excited about it.